Is the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Yeah, yeah, you can go ahead. No problem. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. So,
Yes.
good evening and a very warm welcome to our distinguished speaker, Dr. Meena Mishra, and all our valued participants. Thank you for taking the time out on this Thursday evening to spend to spend an hour with us discussing COVID neutralizing antibodies. Fact or fiction. I think the topic speaks for itself. It's a very interesting topic and a very relevant one in today's day and age. Our distinguished speaker today, Dr. Meena Mishra, is the professor and HOD for Department of Microbiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in Nagpur. She comes to us with a teaching experience of over 2.5 decades and has a list of accomplishments a mile long, if I may put it that way. From setting up the first viral load laboratory at GMC Nagpur to actually setting up the molecular diagnostic laboratory in AIIMS Nagpur. She has over 24 research papers published in international and national journals and has been a regular deliverer of guest lectures at several forums across the country. Right. Without further ado, I think, let's come back to the topic at hand. And Dr. Mishra, over to you, ma'am. All yours.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay. So, a very good evening, everybody. And it is indeed, yeah. Okay. So, it is indeed a privilege for me to present my talk on detection of COVID-19 neutralizing antibodies, flawed science or fact. So, greetings from Nagpur to all of you. Now, we all have been a witness to this COVID pandemic, and the story started in April 2020 when the first case of COVID was reported from NDT from Kerala, and then we all are a witness to what havoc this pandemic created in not only in our country but across the globe. And we have seen the first wave, we have been a witness to the second wave, and right now, this is how we are placed. The, the important thing is that the number of cases, they have definitely come down. So that is a very promising thing and a positive thing. And number of COVID vaccinations, they have increased. So now we are going back to our normal life. Now the outline of my talk will be the immune response against COVID-19, the production of neutralizing antibodies following the natural infection and after vaccination, detection of COVID-19 neutralizing antibodies, flaws and facts of COVID-19 neutralizing antibodies, and the carry home message. Now, this is the scenario all across the globe, and the amount of vaccinated individuals, it is increased, and that is very promising indeed. This is the scenario in our country, and it is very nice to see the graph uh, following a steep trend in both the partially or the fully vaccinated individuals, and probably that has played a very important role in curbing the number of positive cases. There are many questions which still haunt us. Why are fully vaccinated people still catch it COVID-19? Do kids need a COVID-19 vaccine? Can antibody tests show if a COVID-19 vaccine is working? If I had COVID-19, do I really need to take the vaccine? Do we need booster doses? Because now the time has come, like as the healthcare workers, we have been vaccinated in January. So now again, that question is haunting to all the healthcare workers. Do then again, there were a lot many rumors whether it is associated with infertility or what is the link between COVID vaccines and the myocarditis. Dr. Tedros, who is the WHO Director General, this statement given by him made a deep impact upon everybody. This is a time for facts, not fear. This is a time for rationality, not rumors. This is a time for solidarity and not stigma. And a very quick view of the structure of the coronavirus, which I'm sure everyone is well versed with. So these are the important antigens. The most important of them is S, then N antigen, E, He, and the membrane antigen. And this is the 5' and 3' sequence, the terminal sequences that are seen in COVID, in SARS-CoV-2. A quick look into the pathophysiology of COVID-19. All of us are aware that the virus is known to first attack to the angiotensin converting enzyme, which is present in the epithelial cells of the respiratory tract, and it induces an immune response. And if it is the situation go haywire, we see immune dysregulation and altered cytokine networks. And therefore, it is very important to understand the immune response to COVID-19. The T-mediated cell response. So CD4 T cells, they will stimulate the B cells, and that will induce the production of the antibodies. The first to appear is IgM and then the IgG. And also it will stimulate the CD8 T cells, which will kill the virus infected cells. Also, this would lead to production of pro-inflammatory cytokines and mediators. And it can also block the host immune defense by suppressing the T cell functions by programmed cell death, that is the apoptosis. And furthermore, the host production of complement factors like C3A, C3B, and antibodies, again, they are very critical in combating the viral infection. Now, this is in nutshell the immune response against COVID-19. Now here we can see that the T cells and the natural killer cells, so they mount a cell-mediated immune response against the COVID-19. Then also the ACE2 inhibitors, their epithelial cells, when they come in contact with the dendritic cells, T lymphocytes, they induce the interferons and the other chemical mediators. And if they are maintained at lower levels, the patient goes into the recovery mode. But if they are high levels, then they land up in cytokine storm, resulting in multi-organ. Also, the B lymphocytes, when they are stimulated, they result into the production of immunoglobulins and the plasma cells, which will act as the memory cells, and they mount an humoral immune response. There is one very interesting fact which is seen here, that only of that one and that is interesting as well as confusing also, that only a few patients, particularly those who produce neutralizing antibodies early, they experience persistent inflammation, ARDS, and even sudden death, while most patients they survive the inflammatory responses and clear the virus. But the reason for this particular theory is not known till date. And a possible underlying mechanism could be the antibody-dependent enhancement that has been proposed recently. And this ADE can promote the viral cellular uptake of infectious virus antibody complexes following their interaction with the Fc receptors and other receptors, resulting in enhanced infection of the target cells. So, there is no clear information on the production of specific and neutralizing antibodies, which is crucial for development of protective immunity. The antibodies specific for the so-called RBD, that is the receptor binding domain on S protein, so they are considered to be the main targets of neutralizing antibodies, which is a prerequisite for protection. And the cocktail of antibodies specific for RBD and other regions of the S protein may further improve the effect of neutralizing antibodies against SARS-CoV-2 and eventually its mutant strains. Whenever we have any viral infection, we know that there is something which is known as innate immunity. Innate immunity, which the person possesses before infection also, and the different interferons, they will act against the viruses and they will kill it. The another is the adaptive immunity, in which the T cells, B cells, they play a very important role. And it is a specific response against that particular pathogen. It involves the T cells and the B cells. The T cells, they will recognize the cells that are infected with a specific virus, and they will increase rapidly in number to tackle that particular pathogen. CD8 plus cytotoxic T cells, they will kill the cells in which the virus is multiplying, and they will help to slow down or stop the infection. Whereas the CD4 helper T cells, they bring in some other cells of the immune system and stimulate the B cells to induce the antibodies which are specific for that particular virus. And this is the diagrammatic representation of how the CD8 plus T cell, they cause destruction of the virus infected cell. Adaptive immune responses, again, the cell-mediated immune response, CD4 cells, they will facilitate the virus-specific antibody production through the T cell-dependent activation of B cells. And this, however, the CD8 plus T cells, they are cytotoxic and they will cause the killing of the virus-infected cells. B cells, they will mount an immune response, resulting in production of IgM and IgG antibodies. Now, once the infection is over, the T and B cells, they will decline in number, but some cells, they will remain. And these cells, they are known as memory cells. These memory cells, they will respond rapidly if they come in contact with the same virus again, killing the virus and accelerating an antibody response. So whenever we keep on worrying that if my neutralizing antibody levels are not detected, does that mean I'm not protected? Of course, it does not mean that, because these memory cells are there and they will definitely act against the pathogen if you are exposed to that infection. There are some critical aspects of the antibodies in terms of quality and in terms of quantity. By quality, do the antibodies neutralize the virus? Does it have that capacity to block the entry of the virus into the cells and stop its multiplication? Antibodies, they develop against, now this is another point, that they develop against different proteins that are part of the virus. So antibodies against one type of viral protein, it might neutralize the virus, while others might not. Another aspect is that if the antibodies are present, if they are produced, so what is the titer of the antibodies? Is it sufficient enough to give the protection? And the next important question, that how long will these antibodies persist in the body after infection, and they will be protective for us. Another dimension to this is the antigen stability. The viruses, they may mutate over time. And right now in COVID pandemic also, every day we are coming across lot many mutations in the COVID-19 virus also. So the viral proteins, they may change so much that the antibodies produced against the virus won't recognize the antigens if they come in contact again later. And also we are haunted by these questions that are the vaccines, are they do they have that potential of recognizing the mutants, and will it be active against them? Or are the laboratory tests which are available, will they be able to pick up the mutants? So these questions, they haunt us all the time. Now, coming to the neutralizing antibody, it is the antibody which is responsible for defending the cells from the pathogens, and they are produced naturally by the body as a part of immune response. And the production of neutralizing antibody is triggered by both following the infection also and post-vaccination also. So when all the three immunoglobulin classes, IgG, IgM, and IgA, they are found, the maximum neutralization activity against the SARS-CoV-2 is achieved. We all are aware, IgM is the first to appear. It is first undetectable during the first 3 days, but it becomes detectable from day 4 onwards. Initially rises during the first week due to the initial T-dependent humoral response to the virus entry, lasts for 20 days or a month, and then it gradually diminishes. IgG antibody produced 10 to 14 days after infection following the antigen presentation to T cells and the isotype switching, and then peaks to at about day 25 and remains high for weeks. So there is a much more robust IgG response against the SARS-CoV-2 in severe cases as compared to mild cases. and this is correlated with the neutralization levels. IgA, it is the local response, immunological response, and it is against the S protein. It is detectable 6 to 8 days after the symptom onset and peaks around 20 to 22 days post symptom onset. It remains detectable in saliva for a longer period, day 49 to 73, and anti-RBD IgA, it exhibits a comparable kinetic profile to that of IgG, and its antibody responses are rapid and persistent profile because of the mucosal immune responses in the lungs and the intestines. This is the diagrammatic presentation. The graph showing the different antibodies when they are present in the detectable quantity. This is a red one, IgG, then followed by IgM, and the C one, the blue one, it is a specific IgA. Now, the viral RNA, it is inversely correlated with the neutralizing antibody titers, and high titers are seen in critically ill patients. So the first part we have seen that the production of neutralizing antibodies post-infection. Now, production of antibodies following vaccination. Now, I'm just taking a symbolic example of Covishield. Covishield, all of us are aware, it is a adenovirus-based vector vaccine. Now, here we can see that this adenovirus is containing the genetic material for SARS-CoV-2. So, through when vaccine it gets entry into the cell, what will happen? The cell will engulf the virus in a bubble and pulls it inside. Once inside, what will happen? The adenovirus escapes from the bubble and travels to the nucleus where the cell's DNA is present. So, the next step will be building up of the spike proteins. And then there will be the assembly of the spike proteins. This will be spotted. This will be followed by that. Now, what will happen? It will spot the intruder, and then it will kill the cell. So, but then the spike proteins, the debris of spike proteins and the protein fragments, they will present themselves to the antigen presenting cell. That is the T cell. Now, then what will happen? The B cells, when they come in contact with the coronavirus spikes on the surface of the vaccinated cells or the free floating spike protein fragments, then they are then activated by the helper T cells, and that will result in they will again proliferate and they will produce antibodies against the target spike protein. And this is how the protective antibody following vaccination is achieved, right? Then there will be stopping the virus and killing the infected cells, and also it will lead to the production of the memory cells, that are the plasma cells. So antibody dependent enhancement, it has been shown to work through the non or the sub-neutralizing levels of neutralizing antibodies and CD32A. It has also been demonstrated in various other infectious diseases like Zika, dengue, Ebola, and HIV. So neutralizing antibody, it gives lifelong immunity to certain infections. Now here, both neutralizing as well as binding antibodies can be targeted for detection. But here, the former, that is the neutralizing, it binds to a specific part of the pathogen, whereas the binding antibodies, such as immunoglobulin Ig, so they will bind specifically to the pathogens, but they will not interfere with the infectivity. So binding antibodies, they signal the presence of the pathogen in the body, whereas the neutralizing antibodies, they will block the entry of the pathogen into the cell. And here, this is the diagrammatic representation of the same. Again, here we can see that the SARS-CoV, when it comes in contact and when it tries to bind to the receptor binding domain, and if there are presence of neutralizing antibody, what will they do? They will prevent the attachment of these viruses to the ACE2 receptors, and this will result in the protective immunity against the infection. So there are many mechanistic aspects to neutralization. How the neutralizing antibodies bind, whether they will induce conformational changes, whether they irreversibly inactivate the viral proteins that mediate the entry, whether they are most effective against the virions in suspension or after virion attachment to the cells. But however, the mechanism of neutralization refers specifically to which early step in the viral replicative cycle is blocked. So again, here we can see that the virions, when they bound to the IgG, which is bound to the receptor binding domain. Now what will they do? They will block the virions to attach to the cell. But at times it may so happen that the if the neutralizing antibodies may not be able to prevent the receptor interactions. So what will that lead to? Again, it could lead to the now this is the red color is the naked virion that is present inside the cell. So what will it do? It will cause in the exclusion of the genome, resulting in its inactivity. So classically, the neutralization assay, it will comprise of 4 stages. First, it will be the virus and the antibody which are incubated together. Then the virus is allowed to adsorb to the target cells. Third, the viral replication proceeds to produce viral product or reduce the expression of the reporter molecule. And finally, the product is measured in an assay and converted to a signal and compared with no antibody and no virus controls. So these are the different options which are available for testing of neutralizing antibody. It could be the virus neutralization test, such as plaque reduction neutralization test, which is the gold standard, or the micro neutralization test. Then we have the pseudo virus neutralization test, and we have the competitive neutralizing test. Let us quickly have a look at each of them briefly. The PRNT test, it is a gold standard, but it is labor intensive and it takes 3 to 7 days of time. So the virus antibody interactions in microtiter plate antibody, it affects on the viral infectivity. Just give me 1 second, please. And then serial dilutions of the sample are done. They are incubated with the virus, and this will result in the immune complexes. They're covered, they're added to the virus susceptible cells. They are covered with semi-solid medium. They are kept for incubation for several days. And the plaques which are formed, it can be visualized by the fluorescent antibodies or the specific dyes. This is again the diagrammatic representation of the same. The second is the micro neutralization assay. Again, here the time duration, now it is within 2 days. So we can report this much earlier. And here what are we doing? We are detecting the viral antigen in the virus infected cells in microtiter plates in combination with the ELISA. Both the PRNT and the MET test that we have seen, they require viral culture growth that needs to be conducted in the biosafety level 3 laboratory. So we have another option which is available, that is the pseudovirus neutralization assay, in which the SARS-CoV-2 protein is grafted into harmless viruses or virus-like particles, and it is safer and more high throughput and can be done in biosafety level 2 facilities. And another option is the SVNT, that is a surrogate virus neutralization test. It does not need any live virus or cells, and again it could be done within 1 to 2 hours in a biosafety level 2 laboratory. What do we do here? The horseradish peroxidase enzyme, it is conjugated to the RBD proteins from binding to the ACE2 inhibitors, which are pre-coated in the ELISA plate. This is the principle. So, what is the role of the neutralizing antibody? It is used for diagnosis of suspected cases with negative viral RNA test or past COVID-19 infection. Then for surveillance and epidemiological assessment at the population level, where the true case fatality rate and herd immunity can be determined. Monitoring the immune responses to assess the course, degree, and durability of immunity. Contact tracing to figure out the subsequent chain of events and define the cluster of cases, vaccine development and the evaluation of the vaccines, therapeutic antibody development and its evaluation. The considerations for public health and clinical practice. So it is an evidence for the presence of antibodies following infection offers some level of protection from reinfection. And this fact is supported by the reduced incidence of infection amongst persons with SARS-CoV-2 antibodies followed for 3 months or longer, then findings from outbreak investigations that pre-existing detectable antibody correlates with reduced incidence of infection. Then there are challenge experiments in primates, the passively immunized with convalescent plasma demonstrating the prevalence of infection. Then again, the virus neutralization demonstrated with serum from persons following infection. And there are data demonstrating that vaccination, which also results in antibody production that could reduce the incidence of illness and also to decrease disease severity and even prevention of infection associated with administration of monoclonal antibodies. And the, in the FDA news release, it authorizes the first is that it is the neutralizing antibodies on from recent or prior CO2 NCOV infection. So this FDA approval was with the idea that those with antibodies would likely they are supposed to be immune to reinfection at least temporarily, allowing them to re-enter the society without putting themselves or others at risk. But as the pandemic unfolded, the concept of an immunity passport based on having antibodies didn't pan out. So again, the questions. Which specific antibodies guarded against SARS-CoV-2 reinfection? How high did their levels need to be and how long would they provide a reliable defense? Could a simple blood test reveal whether the vaccine was working or later or if it was the time for the booster shot? So do we have answers to these questions yet? Flaws. We'll discuss first about the different flaws. Suppose if I get my neutralizing antibody titers done, and if it is present, does that mean that I will have no reinfection? If I don't follow COVID appropriate infection, I may have reinfection at any time. Then higher the neutralizing antibody titers, lower is the severity of infection. That may not always be true. If titers are less, one needs booster vaccine dose should be done regularly to check whether one is protected or not. It is not needed. It is a marker of successful immunization or do it yourself immunity check. There are many healthcare workers, especially doctors, who always go and get their antibody levels done. And whenever they have a high titer or this repeated, they reported in their blood sample, they feel very happy about it that they are 100% protected. Now, after having a look at the flaws, let us have a look at the facts. Tests that eventually received FDA emergency use authorization have demonstrated high sensitivity and specificity, but that accuracy is for detecting antibodies. Their ability to predict protection against the virus based on those antibodies has not been proven. So this is a very big carry home message that we all of us have. FDA, it has cautioned that some tests they detect antibodies in the immune system that likely produces only after natural infection with the virus. So depending on the assay, people who aren't previously infected could test negative for antibodies despite having vaccine-induced immunity. Again, a very important fact we should keep in mind. Then results from currently authorized SARS-CoV-2 antibody tests should not be used to evaluate a person's level of immunity or protection from COVID-19 at any time, and especially after the person has received the COVID-19 vaccination. There is no clear titer at which one can say whether a particular person is protected, and individuals can have neutralizing antibodies and still get infected. Measuring neutralizing antibodies requires a complex test that is run only in few laboratories and hasn't been scaled up for diagnostic use. Circulating antibodies against the virus, they peak 2 to 3 months after natural infection or vaccination and then begin to decrease. But the immune system's ability to mount a defense lasts longer. So just because one is seeing a decrease in antibody level doesn't necessarily mean that immunity is gone. We have done a small study here at AIIMS Nagpur. So I would like to share some findings that we got after testing for neutralizing antibodies. We did an in vitro semi-quantitative detection of neutralizing antibodies using the kit provided by J. Mitra microELISA based kit with the blocking ELISA principle. So the total number of samples that we tested were 157. So antibodies were detected in as high as 90% of the cases, whereas in 9.5% of the cases, the antibodies were not detected because their cutoff was less than 30. Now, this data we segregated into two parts. Out of those samples, 157 samples, 143 they had taken 2 doses of vaccination. And we observed that 78.3% in this group, they had developed sufficient amount of neutralizing antibodies. Another group, though it had a lesser number of samples, there were only 14, which in whom only 1 dose of vaccination was given. But it is a very interesting finding that even after one first dose of vaccination also, almost 71% of them, they had antibodies detected. So again, this is very interesting finding that even the first dose of vaccination itself gives a very protective immunity. Then in our group, then again, we could manage to get 8 persons who were infected with COVID in between the 2 doses. They were 8 and all 8 were positive for neutralizing antibodies. Then there were some 19 cases who were infected with COVID after 2 doses. So out of 19, 16% they were positive for neutralizing antibodies. And there were 16 who were infected with COVID before the first dose. So even in those, in all the 16, they were positive for neutralizing antibodies. So the carry-home message is SARS-CoV-2 antibody test. It helps the healthcare providers to identify whether someone has antibodies to SARS-CoV-2, indicating a prior infection with the virus. Positive result from an antibody test does not mean you have a specific amount of immunity or protection from SARS-CoV-2 infection. And however, more research is needed to understand the meaning of the positive or negative test. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mishra. That was, how do I put it, extremely comprehensive. In fact, going through when I went through your presentation, I was listening to you, and just like many of the others, we've had a good attendance today for 130 people for the webinar. So I had a lot of questions in my mind, and I would keep writing them down out here. And 2 minutes later, you would answer that same question on your own as part of your presentation.
So I made your job easy.
Oh, ma'am, very easy, because I think the take-home message also is that not everything is good. Not everything. There is no 100% answer on any of the this thing. While you have a PRNT test, which is, like you said, the gold standard, but if it's going to take a week to get the results, that does not serve the purpose. Eventually, we have to move towards a diagnosis method. One, we have to understand if the diagnosis is going to be useful, as in how much antibody is good enough. For some people, like you said in your presentation, whether you have the antibody or not, neutralizing antibody or not, your immune system can still put up a fight, right? You've got memory cells, and those, they will come in contact with the virus again if it ever comes in. My question is this, ma'am: what if those memory cells come in contact with a mutation of the virus? What is your current study? What do they indicate? What happens then?
See, right now, the current studies, they are directed against both the testing ability of the kit and also against the protection that is offered by the existing vaccine that we have. But those studies they show though the mutations they are going on, but then both these things, they may be the testing kits and they may be the vaccines. They are taking care of the mutations right now that we have. And now the continuous studies they are going on, because every time we are coming across the new mutations, there are lot many efforts which are going in for this. So I think it will take some more time to comment upon this thing.
And this is the new, I mean,
Because this
neutralizing
is,
antibodies itself is a new subject, you
yeah,
know.
it is a
So
new subject. And also, like we have previously, like we have many examples, like we can talk about HIV, we can talk about polio viruses also. Even for HIV, till date, we are not able to come up with a successful vaccine. And that is the reason.
ma'am, you have
Because
been
always
associated
the
with the
virus,
HIV.
yeah,
You have been
yeah,
associated with HIV for almost 2 decades now, if I'm not wrong.
yeah,
So you know that the efforts that have gone in there. But
yeah,
here, I think everything, the development of the vaccines has been fast tracked. So
yeah,
we've moved very fast in this
yes,
particular pandemic, from disease to vaccine to testing for it beyond the vaccine. Ma'am,
yeah,
a couple of days ago, the Director General of the WHO, I think Dr. Tedros, he
yeah.
was talking about not giving a booster. Do you have an opinion on that? I mean, do you think a booster will be useful or not useful?
Again, in COVID, every question, like it has two answers and they are 50-50. Now also, like I am aware about my doctor friends who have already taken the third dose.
Oh, okay.
Because they are very much, they were apprehensive about the upcoming third wave. Because there were rumors, not rumors, I should call them the news. A lot of news was coming in, and we had geared sufficiently for third wave. And then some people, they have already taken the third dose also. But
Okay.
then again, like based upon the findings that we got from the neutralizing assay, like for example, like I had the titer of 93%, so I was
Wow.
very much assured in my mind that okay, I have sufficient amount of antibody. But as it is, I have to protect myself from infection, because that doesn't guarantee I'm immune to infection. Or if there were some people in AIMS, and they had taken the two doses, but still the antibody utilized, they were negative for COVID-19 antibody. But again, that doesn't mean that they are not protected. So everything, it like there is a very delicate balance, and it can always go to the other side.
Yes, I have had, because we also work in this line of work in terms of meeting people who are in the COVID industry. So I have seen that a lot of people who have gone through a double vaccination have also suffered. They let their guard down,
Yeah.
and consequently,
And
there has been a
and also
virus
one more thing I would
infection.
like to add, that previously, like before the guidelines came, there was a lot of work which were the different phase trials they were going on. So there was right in the first trial itself, there was an interesting finding that for that the people who had taken only one dose, yeah, who were given half the amount of the dose, so they developed wonderful immunological response as compared to the other people. So all this work, it is also going on right now. But at moment, we don't have the guidelines about the third dose. But I think based upon a lot of work that is being going on, a lot of research that is going on, soon we'll have the guidelines about that also.
Because we have to have a common, how do I call it, a diagnostic, like for HIV or for all other diseases, for all the viruses, there are established guidelines, established standards of reporting, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You can do rapid as a screening test, follow it up with ELISA as a confirmatory
yeah,
test.
yeah,
Right now in this sector, there is of course the PCR, which is for detection, but what about after vaccination? Because the level of vaccination that is being carried out across the world is unprecedented, as I would say, right?
yeah,
So we
yeah,
have to eventually come to know how effective this vaccination has been.
yeah,
Because, like you said, otherwise there is no, you get the vaccine, but you don't know for sure whether you are safe or not.
yeah,
That fear, ma'am, fear is still playing on everybody's mind, no matter how many vaccines you take.
yeah,
So, the carry home message like you gave a very good carry home message. I would still say, in the words of, that the voice that comes on our telephone when mobile phone, Savdhani बरतनी जरूरी
हाँ,
है,
2 गज
uh,
दूरी है, 2 गज
I
दूरी,
think
हाँ, वो
the
बहुत
mask
इम्पोर्टेंट
the
है,
mask is
मास्क
still
एंड
a part of
या
our life at this point of time.
या या सो बस कोविड अप्रोप्रिएट बिहेवियर है ना, maintaining the good immunity levels है ना, because it is all about the immune responses, so we need to really build upon our respiratory immunity and following COVID appropriate behavior and vaccination. I think all these 3 factors, and then of course whenever we have any symptoms, so getting ourselves tested as early as possible and taking proper treatment at time. I think these are the key points right now.
There were a couple of other questions that have come up from our
Yeah,
attendees, ma'am,
yeah,
if you may
yeah,
permit me.
yeah.
We have a question which says, what percentage of seropositivity, in your opinion, would be required to achieve herd immunity? I mean, that's a very
Okay.
big
Okay.
question, in fact.
I think no. I think for herd immunity, they say that at least 70% of the population, they should have like the same principle we have, which we were following for polio. है ना? So when the
Okay.
70% of the people, when they are infected, so naturally the herd immunity will follow in that.
But if you look at our numbers, ma'am, even if you look at about 5 crores as a total, level of infections in the country versus the total level of population in the country, then that 70% looks very far away. 70% looks very far away from that perspective.
Actually, there are many issues that there are so many cases which would have gone in undetected, है ना? That is one factor. Then second, I think we should give compliment to our country that lot many means crores and crores of vaccinations they were done in a very short period of time. I think that also helped. And then
Yes, absolutely.
then there were people who were the first wave it infected so many people, so there might have been the many subclinical infections also, and even there are so many people who never experience any infection, but if you get their antibody test them, they may turn out to be positive.
Oh, yes, we
So
have observed that here as well. We have
yeah,
observed
yeah,
that here as well.
yeah, yeah.
And now, one more question here, which says, routine commercially available antibodies by chemiluminescence and ELISA are not exactly neutralizing antibodies. Is
Yeah,
that right or
they
wrong?
are basically, yeah, because they are basically detecting the IgM or IgG levels, है ना? When we call them as neutralizing antibodies, means they had to be present in sufficient titers, and all 3 of them, na, IgG, IgM, and then
IgA.
IgA, they had to be in sufficient quantities so that they are neutralizing antibodies, which will take care of the infection in future. Because stronger the immune response, they will result in production of good amount of neutralizing antibodies. And when these neutralizing antibodies are there, so whenever a person again he comes in contact with the COVID virus, so what will happen? It will prevent the blocking of the virus to the AC to inhibitors, and that is how it plays a protective role.
Ma'am, what is your opinion about, there are a lot of virus mutations happening, especially with the S gene, right? What is the probability of these naturally occurring mutations happening and their challenges towards the vaccination process per se? Because the vaccines are, like you said, they are good at recognizing an existing virus. But if the virus has
But
changed its
see, nahin,
face,
but always it may not be so, na? Because like for example, for influenza vaccines, every year we need to come up with a new vaccine. That is the reason, na? Because especially the RNA viruses, they are known to go in for a lot of mutations. So, like there are many studies which are being done. So, based upon the prevalence of the mutants that are available during that last 6 months of time. So, based upon that, then those newer vaccines addressing to those newer mutants, then they are prepared. So for COVID also, maybe in near future. So if the virus mutates too much and to the extent that it has mutated so much that the neutralizing antibody may not be able to take care of that, or if for that matter, the vaccine which are available, they may not be able to take care of that. So again, like we are doing for influenza vaccine, for COVID also, the similar state of affairs will be there.
all right.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time and the lovely presentation. Thank you for
Thank you.
taking the time to, it's not easy. I'm sure you leave a very busy schedule at
Yeah.
AIMS Nagpur. So thank
Thank
you
you.
very much for your time, ma'am. While one of our managers, Mr. Tiple, will visit you over the coming week and deliver the certificate in person.
Yeah.
please allow me to use the digital medium and present you with a small certificate of our appreciation.
Thank you. Thank you
Thank
so
you, ma'am.
much. Thank
Thank you
you.
for your time. Have a good day.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, everybody, for your participation in today's webinar. We look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks again for our primary Tide events, which starts from 1st to 3rd December. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.